My name is Sloan Pemberton, and I'm 26 years old. 3 months ago, my boss stood up in front of a boardroom full of executives, the CFO of our biggest client, and the entire analytics team at Meridian Financial Consulting, and he blamed me for a $3.4 million error in a quarterly forecast. He said it with the practiced calm of a man who had been managing his image for 15 years. He said my name twice, slowly, so everyone would remember it. He pointed at me from across the conference room table while the client's CFO watched on the projection screen via video conference. He told the room I had failed to verify my numbers. He told the room he had warned me about my attention to detail issues multiple times. He told the room he had no choice but to recommend my immediate termination. I had not made the error. I had sent him a perfect file at 6:02 p.m. the night before. He had opened that file at 9:47 p.m., made unauthorized changes, introduced the error himself, and saved over my version. He thought no one would ever know. He thought my word against his would lose every time, because he was the senior analytics director with a 15-year reputation, and I was a junior analyst 2 years out of college. What he didn't know, what he had forgotten in 15 years of climbing, was that Meridian's internal systems automatically logged every file edit, every timestamp, and every user who touched a document. And 48 hours after he humiliated me in front of the people who held my career in their hands, the same boardroom screen displayed his edits, in chronological order, in front of the same audience. The truth had been recorded in real time. He just hadn't bothered to check. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, if you've ever sat in a room full of people watching your reputation get destroyed by someone who knew the truth and chose to lie anyway, this story is for you. Like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been thrown under the bus at work? I want to hear what happened. Let me take you back, before the boardroom, before the audit log. Back to the day I walked into Meridian Financial Consulting as a hopeful 24-year-old with a green ceramic turtle in my purse and a head full of plans I had not yet learned would be tested. Meridian Financial Consulting occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower on Constitution Plaza in downtown Hartford, Connecticut. 42 stories, mirrored windows. The kind of building that looks important from the highway and looks expensive from the lobby. Meridian was a mid-sized firm, not a giant like McKinsey or Deloitte, but respected in the regional financial consulting space, with a client list that included insurance companies, hospital systems, regional banks, and a few large manufacturing firms across New England. The firm employed about 300 people. The analytics division where I worked had 37 analysts split across 4 teams. I was hired in May of my second year out of college. I had a bachelor's degree in applied mathematics from UConn and an internship background at a smaller firm in Bridgeport. I had been job hunting for 8 months when the Meridian offer came through. The salary was $68,000. Not extravagant for Hartford's cost of living, but solid for a junior analyst position with growth potential. The benefits were good. The office was in a building I had walked past as a college student and dreamed about working in someday. I accepted the offer within 24 hours. My first day was a Monday in May. I wore a navy pantsuit I had bought at a department store on Trumbull Street and a pair of low heels that hurt my feet by 11 a.m. I carried a leather tote bag with a notebook, a fresh pack of pens, my laptop charger, and one item my grandmother had pressed into my hands the night before. My grandmother, Dorothea Pemberton, was 81 years old. She lived in a small apartment in West Hartford that I visited every other Sunday for tea and cookies and the same conversation we had been having since I was 12, about my plans, my hopes, my anxieties, and the slow accumulation of choices that made up an adult life. She had raised me alongside my mother after my parents divorced when I was 7, and she had been my steady anchor through every confusing year of growing up. The night before my first day at Meridian, she had sat me down at her small kitchen table and given me a present. It was a small ceramic turtle, about the size of a golf ball, glazed in a deep forest green with darker green spots on its shell. The turtle had a slightly dopey smile painted on its face and small black eyes that managed to look both wise and a little surprised at the same time. It was unmistakably handmade, slightly uneven, with the fingerprints of its maker still visible in the glaze along the underside. "This was made by a friend of mine in 1972, she said, placing it in my palm. Her name was Mavis. She made these turtles for everyone she loved. She made me one when I started at the bank in West Hartford. She told me, 'Slow and steady, Dorothea. Don't let anyone rush you into a mistake. The fast ones make the loudest noise, but the slow ones get where they're going.' I kept it on my desk for 31 years. She closed my fingers around the turtle. Now it's yours. Put it on your desk at this new job. And whenever someone tries to rush you or pressure you or push you into doing something you know isn't right, look at the turtle and remember that slow and steady is its own kind of armor. The world rewards the loud people in the short term, but the slow ones survive." I hugged her. I told her I would put the turtle on my desk on my first day. I meant it. The next morning, I walked into Meridian Financial Consulting with the green ceramic turtle in the inside pocket of my tote bag, where I could feel its small weight through the fabric. I rode the elevator to the 38th floor. I checked in with the receptionist. I was led to a cubicle in the analytics bullpen, a long room with high ceilings, fluorescent lighting, and rows of identical workstations separated by waist-high partitions. My cubicle was in the third row, against the east-facing window. From my chair, I could see a strip of the Connecticut River and the southern edge of downtown Hartford. The desk was clean, a new monitor, a new keyboard, a small drawer of office supplies. I unpacked my tote bag carefully. The notebook went in the top drawer, the pens went in the pencil cup, the laptop charger went under the desk. The turtle went in the front right corner of my desk, where I could see it whenever I looked up from my screen. That was the moment I started at Meridian. A green ceramic turtle, a navy pantsuit, and a head full of belief that if I worked hard and stayed careful, the work would speak for itself. It would. Eventually. Just not in the way I expected. I was assigned to the quantitative forecasting team, one of the 4 sub-teams within the analytics division. Quantitative forecasting handled the modeling work for clients who needed projections, quarterly forecasts, annual revenue models, scenario analyses for major business decisions. It was technical, detail-heavy work that required precision and patience. It was also work I was good at, because applied mathematics had trained me to think the way the models thought. My direct supervisor was a man named Russell Vance, the senior analytics director. Russell was 47 years old, tall, well-dressed, with the kind of confident bearing that filled rooms before he opened his mouth. He had been at Meridian for 15 years. He had risen through the analytics division on the strength of big client wins and confident presentations, and he had a reputation as one of the firm's most reliable senior leaders. The CEO trusted him, the clients trusted him, the board trusted him. When I was hired, the HR director told me I was lucky to be working under Russell. He develops young analysts well. Russell met me on my first day. He was wearing a gray suit and a blue tie. He shook my hand firmly, looked me in the eye, and said, "Welcome to Meridian, Sloan. I'm a hands-off manager. I trust my analysts to do their work. I expect quality. I expect attention to detail. I expect you to flag anything you're uncertain about before it becomes a problem. Do those 3 things and we'll get along just fine." 3 things: quality, attention to detail, flagging uncertainty. I made a mental note to remember them. They sounded like a reasonable set of expectations from a senior leader. What I did not understand on my first day, and would not understand for almost 18 months, was that Russell Vance's hands-off management style was not a leadership philosophy. It was a method. He stayed hands-off so that he could take credit when work succeeded, and so that he could distance himself when work failed. He stayed hands-off because being uninvolved gave him plausible deniability. He stayed hands-off because his analytical skills had been deteriorating for years, as the field had become more technical and the modeling tools had become more sophisticated, and his survival strategy was to position himself as a manager rather than a practitioner. to take credit for his team's work rather than producing his own. I did not see any of this on my first day. I saw a senior leader with a firm handshake and a clear set of expectations. I saw a man my grandmother would have called professional. I went back to my new desk, looked at the green turtle in the corner, and got to work. For the first 18 months at Meridian, I was happy. I was learning. I was producing solid work. I was being given more responsibility. I was being mentored, or so I thought, by a senior director who seemed to believe in my potential. The pattern that would eventually destroy and then redeem my career at the firm was already forming, but I could not yet see its shape. I was a junior analyst with a green turtle on her desk, and I believed, the way new employees believe, that hard work and integrity were the only currencies that mattered. They are, eventually, but not always in the order you expect, and not always before someone tries to rob you of both. The pattern started small, like all patterns do. My first major project at Meridian, 4 months into the job, was a quarterly forecasting model for a regional insurance client called Highbridge Mutual. Russell assigned it to me with the casual confidence of a manager handing off something he didn't want to do himself. "You can handle this, Sloan. Standard quarterly model. Just follow the templates from last quarter and update the inputs." I took it seriously. I rebuilt the model from the ground up because the previous quarter's templates had a structural inefficiency I knew how to fix. I documented every assumption. I built in cross-validation checks. I worked late 3 nights to make sure the model produced clean results that would survive any client question. When I delivered the final file to Russell on a Thursday afternoon, he reviewed it for about 90 seconds, nodded, and said, "Good work. I'll handle the presentation Monday." Monday came. Russell presented the model to Highbridge Mutual's leadership team in a conference room with the Highbridge CFO, 2 senior actuaries, and our firm's CEO, Linwood Garrick. I was not invited to the presentation. Junior analysts rarely were. I learned what happened during the presentation from another analyst on my team, a woman named Jacinta Voorhees, who had been at Meridian for 6 years. Jacinta pulled me aside in the break room on Tuesday morning and asked me how the Highbridge model had gone. "I don't know. Russell didn't update me. Did you hear something?" Jacinta looked at me carefully. Russell told everyone in the meeting he had built the new model architecture himself. He said he'd been working on it for weeks. The Highbridge CFO was very impressed. Linwood gave Russell a verbal commendation in front of the room. I was on the call as a note-taker. I heard the whole thing. I felt the first small drop of something cold in my stomach. He said he built it? He said it like it was obvious. "I redesigned the model architecture from the ground up." Those were his words. I wrote them down. That's not... I built that model. I rebuilt it. I know you did. I saw your commits in the version control system. Jacinta gave me a look that I would come to recognize over the next year. The look of a senior colleague who had seen this before, who knew exactly what was happening, but who was not going to be the one to tell me how to handle it. She was offering me information. She was not offering me advice. "What should I do?" I asked. "Whatever you do, don't bring it up with Russell directly. Not your first time. He'll deny it, and then he'll start treating you like a problem. That's what he does." I didn't bring it up. I did what most 24-year-olds in their first real job do when they encounter something that feels wrong but doesn't yet feel actionable. I told myself it was a misunderstanding, a one-time thing, a small slight that wasn't worth jeopardizing my career over. I went back to my desk. I looked at the green turtle. I went back to work. It wasn't a one-time thing. Over the next 14 months, I watched the pattern repeat. Not constantly. Russell was too smart for that, but consistently enough that I could chart it. He took credit for the structural improvements I made to a model for East Point Bank. He took credit for an audit framework I had designed for a hospital system in New Haven. He took credit for catching an error in a colleague's work that I had actually flagged in writing 2 days before the meeting where the catch was announced. The credit-taking was the visible part of the pattern. The invisible part was harder to see at first, but more dangerous. When something went wrong on a project, an input error, a missed deadline, a client complaint, Russell had a way of making the failure feel like it had originated somewhere downstream of him. He would mention, casually, in meetings or in emails to other senior leaders, that he had been concerned about the quality control on a particular project, or that he had asked the analyst multiple times to double-check the inputs. These comments were never in writing in a way that could be directly traced. They were dropped into conversations like seeds, and the seeds grew in the minds of the people who heard them. I was not the only target. Russell did this to everyone on his team. Jacinta Voorhees had been blamed for a delivery delay 6 months before I started, when the actual delay had been caused by Russell missing a client meeting. A man named Eli Brunch, who left Meridian for a competing firm 3 months after I joined, had been quietly written up for communication issues that Eli told me on his last day were actually Russell's failure to forward critical client emails. I started keeping records, not because I had a plan, because the part of my brain that had been trained in applied mathematics could not resist documenting a pattern when I saw one. I created a small folder on my personal hard drive, not on Meridian's network, labeled Reference Notes. Inside the folder, I kept dated entries, project name, what I had actually contributed, what Russell had publicly claimed, who had been in the room when the claim was made. I told myself the folder was just for my own sanity. I told myself I was not building a case. I was building a case. I just didn't know it yet. The Marlowe Industries project came in February of my second year at Meridian. It was the biggest project I had been assigned to date, and it was also the most consequential client relationship the firm had with a manufacturing company in the entire Northeast region. Marlowe Industries was a precision parts manufacturer headquartered in Bristol, Connecticut, with 11 facilities across New England and annual revenues just over $600 million. They had been a Meridian client for 9 years. Their CFO, a woman named Katarina Hellquist, was known throughout the regional financial community as a sharp, no-nonsense executive who did not tolerate sloppy work, and who had been responsible for replacing 2 previous consulting firms that had underperformed for Marlowe. Meridian's contract with Marlowe was worth approximately $1.8 million annually. It was one of the firm's top 5 client relationships. Losing Marlowe would be a significant blow to the firm's bottom line, and to Russell's reputation as the senior leader who managed the relationship. The project Russell assigned me was Marlowe's Q1 quarterly forecast, a comprehensive financial model that projected revenues, costs, and cash flow across all 11 facilities for the upcoming quarter. The model would be presented to Marlowe's executive team and board in a major meeting the second Tuesday of March. The presentation would be led by Russell, with input from Linwood Garrick, Meridian's CEO, and Katarina Hellquist on the client side. It was the kind of meeting where reputations were made and lost. Russell handed me the assignment in his office on a Friday afternoon in early February. Sloan, the Marlowe Q1 forecast. You're the primary analyst. I need this to be flawless. Katarina will tear apart anything that looks sloppy. I want every assumption documented, every input verified, and every cell traceable. Can you handle it? Yes. Good. I'm trusting you with this. Don't let me down. I worked on the Marlowe Q1 forecast for 3.5 weeks. I built it carefully, the way I built everything. Slow, methodical, double-checked. I cross-verified every input against Marlowe's source data. I built in scenario analysis for 3 different demand projections. I documented every assumption in a separate methodology file that any future analyst could read and understand. I had Jacinta Voorhees do a peer review on the model the week before the deadline, and she found 1 minor formatting issue and 0 analytical errors. By Monday afternoon, the day before the Tuesday presentation, the model was complete and clean. I sent the final file to Russell at 6:02 p.m. via Meridian's internal file management system, with a brief email summarizing the key findings and flagging one assumption I wanted him to be aware of in case Katarina asked about it. The email confirmation showed delivered at 6:02 p.m. I remember the time because I checked it twice. I always checked the timestamps on important deliverables. a habit I had picked up from my grandmother's slow and steady philosophy applied to the digital age. Verify everything. Trust the receipts. I packed up my desk. I touched the green turtle for luck. I went home. I made dinner. I went to bed early because I knew the next day was going to be intense. The next morning, the entire architecture of my career at Meridian collapsed in a conference room on the 38th floor in front of 14 people, including the CFO of our biggest client. I had no idea, going to bed Monday night, that Russell Vance had opened my file at 9:47 p.m. and started making changes that would put a $3.4 million error into a forecast he was about to present to Katarina Hellquist's face. I had no idea that he would save over my version. I had no idea that he would walk into that conference room Tuesday morning, prepared to use my name as a shield. I had no idea the green turtle on my desk was about to become the smallest object in the most important fight of my professional life. The Marlowe Industries quarterly meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on Tuesday in the main boardroom on the 39th floor, the floor above my normal workspace, where the executive offices were, and where the largest conference room in the building had a long mahogany table, 16 leather chairs, 2 ceiling-mounted projectors, and a 20-foot screen on the front wall. I arrived at the office at 7:45 a.m., earlier than usual. I wanted time to review the model one more time before the meeting. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the file in Meridian's internal system to do a final read-through. The file had been modified. I noticed it immediately. The modification timestamp on the file showed it had been edited the night before at 11:18 p.m. by Russell. I had sent it to him at 6:02 p.m. He had opened it at 9:47 p.m. and made changes for an hour and a half. I felt something in my chest. Not panic yet, just the small, alert tightening that comes when you realize a story has changed without your input. I opened the file. I scrolled to the executive summary. I looked at the headline numbers. The Q1 revenue projection for Marlowe Industries showed a figure of $47.8 million. The number I had submitted the night before had been $44.4 million. A $3.4 million discrepancy. I scrolled through the model to find the source of the change. It took me less than 2 minutes. Russell had altered a single input on the volume forecast worksheet. A unit pricing assumption for one of Marlowe's product lines increased from $42 per unit to $48 per unit. The change rippled through the model and inflated the revenue projection by $3.4 million. The change was not justified by any source data. There was no documentation explaining why the assumption had been altered. The cell where the change had been made was Russell's edit, dated 10:31 p.m. the night before. I sat at my desk and I tried to think clearly. The meeting was in 70 minutes. The presentation would be led by Russell, who would walk into the boardroom with this altered model and present a $47.8 million projection to Katarina Hellquist, a CFO whose entire reputation was built on catching exactly this kind of error. She would catch it. I knew she would. Katarina Hellquist had been the CFO of Marlowe for 11 years, and she knew her unit pricing better than she knew the names of her own employees. The $48 figure would not pass her review for 30 seconds. She would ask where it came from. She would demand a source, and the source did not exist because Russell had pulled the number out of the air at 10:31 p.m. the night before, after he had been drinking, I would learn later, from the building security footage Priya helped me obtain, that Russell had been at a bar across the street from the office until 9:30 p.m. and had returned to the building visibly unsteady. I had to do something. I had 70 minutes. I had to either fix the file or warn Russell or warn someone above Russell. I tried Russell first. I called his office extension. No answer. I tried his cell phone. Voicemail. I sent him an urgent email with the subject line, Urgent, Marlowe Q1 model, error in unit pricing assumption. Please call me before 9 a.m. I marked the email high priority. I attached a screenshot of the altered cell with my correction notes. I waited. He did not respond. At 8:30 a.m., I made a decision that I now realize was the right one, even though it almost cost me my career. I went up to the 39th floor. I walked into the area outside the boardroom. Russell was already there, in his suit, drinking coffee, talking to two other senior leaders. He looked up when he saw me. "Sloan, what are you doing up here?" "Russell, I need to talk to you. It's urgent. About the Marlowe model." "The model is fine. I reviewed it last night. We're good." "Russell, the unit pricing assumption." "Sloan." His voice dropped. He stepped away from the other leaders and pulled me into a small alcove near the elevator. His face was the face of a man who was about to walk into the most important meeting of his quarter and who did not want a junior analyst making waves. "I made some adjustments to the model. They reflect updated guidance from the client. The numbers are correct as I have them. Go back to your desk. The meeting will be fine." "Updated guidance from what client?" "Marlowe didn't give us updated unit pricing. The original number was verified against their source data. I have the documentation." "Sloan." His jaw tightened. "I am not going to argue with you in the hallway 5 minutes before a major client presentation. Go back to your desk. If there's an issue, I will handle it in the meeting. That's an order from your supervisor." I should have pushed harder. I should have walked into the boardroom anyway. I should have called Linwood Garrick's office directly. I did none of those things because I was 26 years old and Russell was 47, and he was using the full weight of his 15 years of authority to push me back into a junior analyst's place. The hierarchy was doing its work. I had been trained, by every workplace norm I had absorbed, to defer to my supervisor when he gave me a direct instruction. I went back to my desk on the 38th floor. I sat in front of my laptop. I touched the green turtle once, and I waited. And at 9 a.m., the meeting started one floor above me, without me in the room. I learned what happened in the boardroom over the next 4 hours, in pieces, from people who had been present. The meeting started normally. Russell walked the room through Meridian's analysis. He presented the executive summary. He highlighted the key findings. The $47.8 million revenue projection was on slide 3. Katarina Hellquist caught the error within the first 6 minutes. According to Jacinta Voorhees, who was in the room as a note-taker, Katarina stopped Russell mid-sentence and said, "Russell, your unit pricing assumption on line 14 is incorrect. We are not pricing that product line at $48. We are pricing it at $42. Where did you get this figure?" Russell did not have an answer. He looked at the slide. He looked at his notes. He shuffled through the printed model packet he had brought to the meeting. He stalled for 45 seconds while the room watched. Then he made his choice. "Katarina, I apologize for the discrepancy. Let me check with my analyst. There may have been an error in the input data she provided me. Sloan, our junior analyst on this project, was responsible for the source data verification." He had said my name. In the boardroom. In front of Katarina Hellquist and Linwood Garrick and 12 other people. He had named me as the source of the error he had introduced himself 10 hours earlier in a file he had opened after coming back from a bar. Katarina did not let it go. "Russell, this is a $3.4 million error in a quarterly forecast. This is not a minor input issue. This is a significant problem." "I understand. I take full responsibility for not catching it before this meeting. I should have done a more thorough review of my analyst's work. Sloan has been with us for 2 years. She is a junior analyst. I have been concerned about her attention to detail issues for some time, and this confirms that I needed to be more involved in her quality control process. I am going to address this internally immediately." That sentence, "concerned about her attention to detail issues for some time," was the seed Russell had planted. He had not been concerned about my attention to detail. He had taken credit for my detail work for 18 months. But now, in this room, with the client demanding accountability, he reached into the pre-built narrative he had been quietly constructing as a contingency, and he used it. Linwood Garrick, the CEO, asked Russell what he wanted to do. "I think we need to pause this meeting. I need to bring Sloan up here so the client can hear directly from her how this error happened, and then I think we need to discuss her continued employment at the firm." Linwood agreed. Jacinta was sent to my desk at 9:31 a.m. to bring me up to the boardroom. I followed Jacinta into the elevator. She did not speak. Her face was the face of someone who had information I needed and could not yet share. We rode up one floor in silence. She walked me to the boardroom door and said quietly, "Sloan, whatever happens in there, do not lose your composure. Just listen. Take notes if you can. Do not say anything you cannot back up later." I walked into the boardroom. 14 people. Russell at the head of the table standing beside the projection screen. Linwood Garrick at the other end. Katarina Hellquist on the screen via video conference, her face filling a 6-foot square at the front of the room. Senior leaders along both sides of the table. The screen behind Russell still displayed slide 3 of the Marlowe presentation, with the incorrect $47.8 million figure highlighted in yellow. Russell turned to me. His face was the face of a coach calling a play he had practiced 100 times. "Sloan, thank you for coming up. We have an issue with the Marlowe Q1 forecast. The unit pricing assumption on line 14 is incorrect. Can you explain to Ms. Hellquist how this happened?" I looked at the screen, the cell that contained the wrong number. The cell Russell had altered at 10:31 p.m. the night before. I looked at Russell. I looked at Katarina on the screen. I looked at Linwood at the head of the table. I made the second worst decision of my career, after the decision not to walk into the meeting earlier. I told the truth. The original model I submitted last night had the unit pricing at $42 per unit, which was verified against Marlowe's source data. The figure was correct when I sent it. The change in the model was made after I submitted it. The room went very still. Russell's voice did not change. "Sloan, that is incorrect. I reviewed the model you sent me, and the unit pricing was set to $48 when I received it. I did not alter the input. Are you suggesting I made the change?" "I am stating that I sent you the model with the unit pricing at $42 at 6:02 p.m. yesterday, and the file was modified at 11:18 p.m. by your account, and the unit pricing in the modified file is $48. "Sloan, that's not accurate. I think you're confused about what you submitted. We can review the file history later. Right now we are in a client meeting and I need you to focus." He turned to Katarina on the screen. "Katarina, I apologize for this. I am going to handle this internally. Sloan, please step out of the meeting. We will discuss your employment status later this afternoon." Linwood Garrick spoke for the first time. "Sloan, please return to your desk. Do not access any work files until we have spoken with you. HR will be in touch this afternoon." I walked out of the boardroom at 9:38 a.m. My face was hot. My hands were shaking. I rode the elevator down one floor to my own desk. I sat down. I looked at the green turtle on the corner of my desk. I picked it up and held it in my palm. Slow and steady. Don't let anyone rush you into a mistake. I had not made a mistake. The mistake had been made by a man who was now using my name as a shield in a boardroom one floor above me. I needed to prove it. And I needed to prove it before the end of the day, because by 5 p.m., I was going to be terminated. I needed help. I needed someone who knew how Meridian's internal systems actually worked. I picked up my desk phone. I dialed an extension I had used twice before for routine IT issues. I asked for Priya Vance. Priya Vance answered her extension on the second ring. "IT systems, this is Priya." "Priya, this is Sloan Pemberton from Analytics. I need to talk to you about something. It's urgent, and it's not a normal IT request. Can I come down to your office?" There was a brief pause. "How urgent?" "I'm probably going to be fired by 5 p.m. today. That kind of urgent." "Come down now, 8th floor, office 814. I took the elevator down 30 floors. The IT department occupied a section of the 8th floor that most analysts never visited, a quieter corner of the building with smaller offices and a different smell, the slightly metallic scent of servers and cable insulation. Priya's office was at the end of a short hallway. The door was open. Priya Vance was 34, with shoulder-length dark hair pulled back in a clip and the calm, focused energy of a person who spent her days managing systems that did not tolerate carelessness. She had been at Meridian for 9 years. We had spoken maybe 4 or 5 times in 2 years. Once when I had locked myself out of my email, once when a printer driver had failed, twice in the elevator about nothing in particular. I knew her by reputation as competent and direct. I sat down in the chair across from her desk, and I told her everything in 14 minutes. The Marlowe project, the 6:02 p.m. submission, the 11:18 p.m. modification, the boardroom meeting, the blame, the instruction to step out, the conversation with HR pending that afternoon. Priya listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked one question. When you sent the file at 6:02 p.m., how did you send it? Through Meridian's internal file management system, the standard share function. Then we have everything we need. She turned to her computer. She typed for about 30 seconds. Then she swiveled her monitor toward me. Sloan, I want to show you something most analysts don't know about. Meridian's internal file management system runs on an audit logging infrastructure that I helped configure 4 years ago. Every file action is logged. Every open, every save, every edit, every cell-level change in spreadsheet files, every user, every timestamp. The logs are immutable. They can't be edited or deleted by users, only by senior IT administrators with special credentials, of which there are 3 at this firm, including me. The logs exist for compliance reasons. The firm has to be able to prove file integrity for client work, especially financial models that get presented to external clients. I stared at the screen. She was scrolling through what looked like a database, rows and rows of time-stamped entries with file names, user IDs, action types, and metadata. You're telling me there's a complete record of every change to the Marlowe file? Every change, including the specific cells that were modified, the user who modified them, and the exact timestamp of each modification. Let me pull the Marlowe Q1 forecast file. She typed the file name. The system returned a list of every action taken on that file in the past month. The list was hundreds of entries long. She filtered it to show only edits made in the last 48 hours. The list shrank to about 30 entries. I read them in order. The first cluster of edits was mine. Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, Monday afternoon. Each entry showed my user ID, S. Pemberton, and the cells I had modified, with timestamps. The final entry in my cluster was at 6:02:14 p.m. on Monday, when I had saved and shared the file with Russell. After 6:02:14 p.m., there were no edits for the rest of Monday evening. The file sat untouched in the system for almost 4 hours. At 9:47:33 p.m., a new entry appeared. User ID, R. Vance. Action, file opened. The next entries showed Russell's edits. He had modified the unit pricing assumption on the volume forecast worksheet at 10:31:09 p.m., changing the value from 42 to 48. He had then made several smaller adjustments to formatting cells. He had saved the file at 11:18:47 p.m. He had closed it at 11:19:02 p.m. The audit log showed everything, every keystroke that mattered, every timestamp accurate to the second. The truth of what had happened was sitting in a database 8 floors below the boardroom where Russell had blamed me for it. I looked at Priya. This is everything I need. It is. But Sloan, I need to tell you something before we go any further. I am willing to help you with this. I am going to help you with this. But I want you to understand why. She turned the monitor back toward herself. She folded her hands on the desk. Her expression was the expression of a woman who had decided to say something she had been holding for a long time. 3 years ago, I built a system at this firm, a monitoring tool that helped the analytics division catch data inconsistencies in client models before they went to client meetings. I built it on my own time. I designed it, I coded it, I tested it, I implemented it. When it worked, the firm rolled it out to the entire analytics division, and it became one of the standard tools every analyst uses to validate their work. You probably use it without knowing who built it. You built the validation framework? The one we run on every model? I built it. And when it was rolled out, a senior IT director, a man named Jordan Ash, who was my supervisor at the time, took credit for it in front of leadership. He told the CEO it was his idea. He took the recognition. He got promoted to VP of IT 3 months later based partly on that work. I was passed over for a senior administrator role I had been preparing for. I went home that night and I cried. And the next day I went to work and I did not say anything, because I was afraid that fighting it would make me look bitter and would hurt my career more than the original theft already had. She paused. Jordan Ash left the firm 2 years ago for a competitor. I still build systems here. I still do good work. But I have spent 3 years carrying the small, specific knowledge that I let him take something from me without fighting back. And when you walked into my office today, Sloan, I realized I have been waiting to help someone fight a Russell Vance for 3 years. I am going to help you. Not because it's my job, because it's what I should have done for myself. I did not know what to say. I just nodded. Now, Priya said, her voice shifting back into the practical register of a systems administrator, let me explain how we are going to handle this. We have less than 6 hours before HR contacts you. The audit log alone is enough to prove your innocence in a private meeting with HR. But if we want to do this right, if we want to make sure Russell doesn't talk his way out of it the way men like Russell always do, we need to present this evidence in a setting where he cannot deny it and cannot reframe it. What setting? A follow-up meeting. We're going to ask the CEO to convene one. I'm going to draft an email to Linwood Garrick this afternoon on behalf of the IT department, flagging a data integrity concern related to the Marlowe Q1 forecast file. I am authorized to do this because I am the senior administrator of the audit logging system. When IT flags a data integrity concern on a major client file, the CEO is required by firm policy to convene a review meeting within 48 hours. The review meeting will include the CEO, the COO, the head of HR, the senior leadership of the analytics division, including Russell, and the client, if relevant. Katarina Hellquist will likely join via video conference. And in that meeting? In that meeting, I will be present as the IT representative. I will request permission to display the audit log on the conference room screen. The CEO will grant permission because IT is the source of the data integrity concern and refusing would look like a cover-up. I will project the audit log. The room will see, in chronological order, every edit to the Marlowe file. Your edits stop at 6:02 p.m. Russell's edits begin at 9:47 p.m. The cell where the error was introduced will be highlighted with the timestamp and the user ID. There will be no ambiguity. There will be no story Russell can tell that contradicts what is on the screen. I looked at Priya. The plan was clean. It was technical. It was the kind of plan a person who understood systems would build. What do I do between now and then? You do nothing. You go back to your desk. When HR calls you this afternoon, you tell them you have been in contact with the IT department about a data integrity concern on the Marlowe file, and that you have been advised to wait for the formal review meeting before discussing the matter further. You do not accuse Russell. You do not defend yourself in detail. You stay calm, and you say very little. You let the meeting happen. The audit log will speak for you. I took a breath. I felt the green turtle in my mind even though I had left it on my desk 30 floors above. Slow and steady. Don't let anyone rush you into a mistake. Okay, let's do it. The HR call came at 2:47 p.m. The HR director, a woman named Beatrice Calloway, asked me to come to her office on the 37th floor at 3:30. I went. She told me, with the carefully neutral tone of an HR professional managing a sensitive situation, that based on Russell Vance's report from the morning's client meeting, my employment at Meridian was under formal review and that a decision about my continued employment would be made within 72 hours. I responded exactly as Priya had coached me. Beatrice, I want to cooperate fully with this review. I want to let you know that I have been in contact with the IT department about a data integrity concern related to the Marlowe Q1 forecast file. I have been advised that the IT department is filing a formal flag with the CEO's office and that a review meeting will be convened within 48 hours. I would like to defer any further discussion of my employment status until that review meeting has taken place. Beatrice looked at me for a long moment. She was a careful woman in her mid-50s who had been at Meridian for almost 2 decades. I could see her recalculating in real time. a junior analyst invoking IT and citing a formal CEO-level review process was not the script she had been prepared for. Russell had clearly told her this would be a routine termination conversation. "All right, Sloan, I will note your statement. You are not terminated at this time. You are placed on administrative paid leave pending the review meeting. Please go home and wait for further communication." I went home. I sat in my apartment in the West End neighborhood of Hartford with the green turtle on my coffee table. I had brought it home from my desk before leaving the office, and I waited for the next 48 hours to bring me either justice or a new job search. Priya emailed me at 7:14 p.m. "Linwood received the IT flag at 4:30 this afternoon. Review meeting is scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. in the main boardroom. Katarina Hellquist will join via video. I am presenting the audit log. You are required to attend. Wear something professional. Bring nothing. The system will show everything." I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and I made dinner and I went to bed early. I slept badly, but I slept. The morning was coming, and the morning would bring the screen, and the screen would bring the truth. Thursday morning, 9:42 a.m. I rode the elevator to the 39th floor of the Meridian building, the same floor I had been escorted out of 48 hours earlier, and I walked the same hallway toward the same boardroom where Russell Vance had used my name as a shield in front of 14 people. I was wearing a charcoal blazer and gray slacks. My hair was pulled back. I carried no folder, no laptop, no notebook. Priya had been clear: bring nothing. The system will show everything. The green turtle was in the inside pocket of my blazer. I had taken it from my coffee table that morning and slipped it in without thinking. I needed it where I could feel it. I arrived at the boardroom door at 9:54 a.m. The door was already open. Priya was inside, setting up her laptop at the corner of the long mahogany table near the projection equipment. She looked up when I walked in, gave me a small nod, and went back to her connections. She was wearing a navy blazer and the same calm, focused expression she had worn in her office on Tuesday afternoon. She looked like a person who had been preparing for a presentation her entire career. The room filled slowly over the next 6 minutes. Beatrice Calloway from HR arrived first, followed by the COO, a tall man named Edward Wexler. Then 2 senior leaders from the analytics division, Marcus Allenby and Kendra Torres, both directors at the same level as Russell. Then Linwood Garrick, the CEO, who walked in at 9:58 with a leather portfolio under his arm, and the unsmiling face of a man who had been forced to clear his morning for a problem he had not anticipated. Russell arrived at exactly 10. He was wearing the same gray suit he had worn on Tuesday, but the suit looked tighter on him today, or maybe it was the way he was carrying himself, slightly stiffer, the confident bearing replaced by something more cautious. He had been told what the meeting was about. He had been told it was a data integrity review of the Marlowe file. He had not been told what the IT department had actually found. Priya had structured the meeting request that way deliberately. Russell took a seat across the table from me. He did not look at me. He set a leather folder in front of him and folded his hands on top of it. He looked at Linwood Garrick at the head of the table. The screen at the front of the room flickered on. Katarina Hellquist's face appeared in the video conference window, filling a 6-foot square. She was in her own office at Marlowe Industries headquarters in Bristol. Her expression was the expression of a CFO who had cleared her morning to find out whether her consulting firm could be trusted with another quarter of her business. Linwood Garrick spoke. "Thank you all for being here. We have convened this meeting at the request of our IT department, which has filed a formal data integrity flag related to the Marlowe Q1 forecast file presented in this room on Tuesday morning. As many of you know, that meeting ended with a significant error being identified by our client. We are here today to determine the source of that error and to take appropriate action. Priya Vance from our IT department is leading the technical portion of this meeting. Priya, please proceed." Priya stood up. She walked to the front of the room, near the projection screen, and turned to face the table. "Thank you, Linwood. My name is Priya Vance. I am the Senior IT Systems Administrator responsible for Meridian's internal file management infrastructure, including the audit logging system that tracks all file actions on our shared client work. I am presenting today because the IT department has identified a discrepancy between the actions reported by personnel involved in the Marlowe Q1 forecast and the actions recorded in our audit logs. She paused. She looked around the table. Her gaze did not linger on Russell, but it did not avoid him either. For context, Meridian's audit logging system was implemented 4 years ago for compliance and quality assurance purposes. Every action taken on a file in our internal system is logged automatically. Every open, every save, every cell-level edit in spreadsheet files, every user, and every timestamp. The logs are immutable. They cannot be altered or deleted by users, including by the analysts and managers who work on the files. The logs exist to provide a complete, tamper-proof record of file integrity. She turned to Linwood. With your permission, I would like to display the audit log for the Marlowe Q1 forecast file on the screen so the room can review the relevant actions together. Linwood nodded. Granted. Please proceed. Priya tapped a key on her laptop. The screen at the front of the room split. Katerina's video conference window shrank to the upper right corner, and the rest of the screen filled with a database table. Long rows of time-stamped entries with file names, user IDs, and action types. The text was large enough for everyone in the room to read clearly. This is the audit log for the file titled Marlowe_Q1_forecast_V7.xlsx, which is the file that was presented in this boardroom on Tuesday morning. I am going to filter this view to show only the actions taken on this file in the 72 hours leading up to the Tuesday meeting. Watch the screen. She typed. The list filtered. About 30 entries appeared. I watched Russell's face from across the table. His eyes were on the screen. His hands, folded on top of the leather folder, had begun to grip the folder edges. I am going to walk through the relevant entries in chronological order. The first set of entries shows the work done on this file by the assigned analyst, Sloan Pemberton, beginning on Saturday afternoon and continuing through Monday. You can see her user ID, S. Pemberton, appearing in each entry. The cells she modified are listed in the metadata column. These edits represent the construction and refinement of the model. She scrolled slowly. The room watched. Edit after edit. Saturday into Sunday, into Monday morning, into Monday afternoon. My name, my cells, my timestamps. The final entry in Sloan Pemberton's edit cluster is at 6:02 minutes 14 cents p.m. on Monday. At this timestamp, Sloan saved the file and shared it through Meridian's internal share function with one recipient, Russell Vance. The audit log records the share action and the recipient. She highlighted the row. The screen showed clearly. 1802-14. Spemberton. File saved and shared. Recipient. R. Vance. Following this share action, the file was not modified for nearly 4 hours. From 6:02 p.m. until 9:47 p.m. on Monday evening, the file was inactive. No user opened it. No edits were made. Russell's grip on his folder tightened. I could see the white of his knuckles from across the table. At 9:47:33 p.m. on Monday evening, the file was opened by user R. Vance. This is the next entry in the audit log. She highlighted the entry. 21:47:33. R. Vance, file opened. The room was silent. Marcus Allenby, one of the analytics directors, was leaning forward in his chair. Kendra Torres had her hand over her mouth. Beatrice from HR was taking notes on a small pad. Linwood Garrick had not moved. His eyes were fixed on the screen. Katerina Hellquist on the video screen had also leaned forward, her face filling the upper right corner with focused attention. Following the file open at 9:47 p.m., user R. Vance made a series of edits to the file over the next 90 minutes. I am going to show you those edits now. Priya tapped a key. The screen filtered to show only the edits made by Russell between 9:47 p.m. and 11:19 p.m. There were 11 entries. At 10:31:09 p.m., user R. Vance modified the value in cell J47 of the volume_forecast worksheet. This is the cell that contained the unit pricing assumption for one of Marlowe Industries' product lines. The audit log records the previous value and the new value for every cell modification. Let me display the cell-level detail. She clicked. A new window opened on the screen, showing a single audit entry expanded. Cell, volume_forecast.com J47. Previous value, 42. New value, 48. Modified by RVance. Modified at 22/31/09 EST. Justification note, none provided. The room was completely still. The only sound was the faint hum of the building's HVAC system. The previous value in this cell was $42 per unit. This was the value submitted by Sloan Pemberton in the file she shared at 6:02 p.m. At 10:31 p.m., user RVance modified this value to $48 per unit. No justification was entered. The change of $6 per unit, applied across the volume projection in the model, results in an increase of approximately $3.4 million in the Q1 revenue forecast. This is the source of the discrepancy that Ms. Hellquist identified in Tuesday's meeting. Priya turned from the screen. She looked at the room. For clarity, the error in the Marlowe Q1 forecast file presented on Tuesday morning was not introduced by Sloan Pemberton. Sloan Pemberton submitted a file with a unit pricing of $42 at 6:02 p.m. on Monday. The file was modified by Russell Vance between 9:47 p.m. and 11:19 p.m. on Monday. The unit pricing was changed from 42 to 48 at 10:31 p.m. by Russell Vance. The audit log is unambiguous on this point. The room did not erupt. It did the opposite. It went deeper into silence. The specific kind of silence that happens when 14 people have just witnessed a piece of evidence that cannot be talked around. Russell finally spoke. His voice was lower than I had ever heard it. Linwood, I can explain. Russell. Linwood's voice cut him off. It was not loud. It was just final. Hold for a moment. Linwood turned to Priya. Priya, is there any possibility this audit log is inaccurate? Any chance of a system error or a misattribution of user IDs? No, sir. The audit logging system is built on cryptographic hash verification. Every entry is signed with a hash that includes the user's authentication token, the timestamp, and the file state. If any entry had been altered or misattributed, the hash chain would break and the system would flag it. The hash chain on this file is intact. The log is authoritative. Linwood nodded slowly. He turned to Russell. Russell, you have an opportunity to address the audit log right now. I am going to ask you a direct question, and I want a direct answer. Did you open the Marlowe Q1 forecast file at 9:47 p.m. on Monday evening, and did you modify the value in cell J47 from 42 to 48 at 10:31 p.m.? Russell's face had gone the color of wet paper. He looked at the screen. He looked at the audit log entry that bore his user ID and his timestamp. He looked at Katarina Hellquist on the video screen, who was watching him with an expression that no amount of 15-year reputation was going to soften. I made some adjustments to the model that night based on my professional judgment about market conditions. I did not document the changes in writing. I should have. That was a mistake on my part. But the broader issue is one of quality control and supervision, and Russell. Linwood's voice again, sharper this time. I asked you a direct question. Did you change the value in that cell from 42 to 48 on Monday night? A long pause. Yes. The single word landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. And on Tuesday morning in this room, when Ms. Hellquist identified the error, you told this meeting that the error originated in source data provided by Sloan Pemberton. Was that statement accurate? Russell did not answer. Russell, was that statement accurate? No, it was not. Linwood sat back in his chair. He looked at Beatrice Calloway from HR. He looked at Edward Wexler, the COO. He looked, finally, at me, across the table for the first time in the meeting. His expression was the expression of a CEO who had just watched a senior leader he had trusted for 15 years destroy his own career in real time. Katarina Hellquist spoke from the video screen. Linwood, I want to address this directly while we are all in the room. I have been a client of Meridian for 9 years. I have personally trusted Russell Vance with the financial modeling that informs my company's quarterly planning. What I have just watched on this audit log is the most serious breach of professional integrity I have witnessed from a consulting firm in my career. You have a junior analyst, Miss Pemberton, who did her job correctly and was publicly blamed by her supervisor in front of my face for an error he himself introduced into the file after she submitted it. I want to be clear about what Marlowe Industries expects from this point forward. I expect Russell Vance to be removed from my account immediately. I expect a formal written apology from Meridian leadership, copied to my CEO. And I expect Ms. Pemberton to be present in any future meeting between Meridian and Marlowe regarding the Q1 forecast, because she is the person at this firm who actually built the model I am being asked to make decisions on. Linwood nodded once. Katarina, you have my commitment on all 3 points. I will be following up with you personally this afternoon. Katarina nodded back. The video window went still. She did not end the call. She wanted to watch the rest. Linwood turned to Russell. Russell, please leave this room. Beatrice will meet with you in her office in 15 minutes. You are suspended without pay, effective immediately, pending termination proceedings. I will need you to surrender your building access badge to security on your way out. Russell did not stand up immediately. He looked at the audit log on the screen. He looked at his folder. He looked, finally, at me. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment. I did not feel triumph. I felt exhausted. I felt the specific exhaustion of a person who has been carrying a heavy thing for 2 years and has finally been allowed to set it down. Russell was looking at me with an expression I could not fully read. Anger, maybe, or shame, or the dim recognition of a man who had counted on the hierarchy to protect him and had just learned that the hierarchy could not protect him from a database. He stood up. He gathered his folder. He walked to the door of the boardroom. He did not say anything. He opened the door. He walked through it. He closed it behind him. The room exhaled. Linwood turned to me. His voice was different now. Not the CEO voice, the human voice underneath it. Sloan, I owe you an apology. Not the kind I am going to write in a formal letter, although you will receive that as well. The kind I am going to say to you now, in this room, in front of the people who watched Russell Vance use your name to protect himself on Tuesday morning. I am sorry. I should have asked harder questions in that meeting. I should have insisted on seeing the file history before I sent you back to your desk. I trusted Russell because I had been trusting Russell for 15 years, and that trust caused me to fail in my responsibility to a junior employee at this firm. I am sorry. The other senior leaders at the table, Marcus Allenby, Kendra Torres, Edward Wexler, added their own quieter apologies. Beatrice Calloway told me my administrative leave was lifted effective immediately and that HR would be in touch about a formal commendation. Katarina Hellquist, still on the video screen, said simply, Ms. Pemberton, I look forward to working with you directly on the revised Q1 forecast. Please contact me at your convenience. I said the only thing I could say. Thank you. Priya was still standing at the front of the room beside the projection screen. The audit log was still displayed behind her. She looked at me across the boardroom and gave me the smallest possible smile. The smile of a woman who had been waiting 3 years to see a system she had built do the work it had been built to do, and who had finally seen it. I touched the green turtle in the inside pocket of my blazer. Slow and steady. The slow ones get where they're going. Russell Vance was terminated by the end of the day Thursday. The official reason listed in the firm's records was professional misconduct and falsification of work attribution. His building access was revoked at 4:15 p.m. His office on the 38th floor was cleared out by IT staff over the weekend, and by Monday morning his nameplate had been removed from the door. 15 years at Meridian ended in a 4-hour boardroom meeting on a Thursday. I learned later from Jacinta Voorhees that Russell tried to negotiate for a quiet exit,
a resignation rather than a termination, a positive reference, a non-disclosure agreement.
Linwood Garrick refused. Linwood told Russell that the firm would not provide cover for what had happened, and that any future employer who called Meridian for a reference would receive an honest answer. Russell did not contest the termination. His attorney sent a letter requesting that the firm not discuss the specifics of his departure with external parties. Linwood agreed to that limited concession. The firm did not announce the reasons for Russell's departure publicly, but the analytics division knew. Within a week, every analyst at Meridian had heard a version of the story. I was offered Russell's role on the following Monday. Linwood called me into his office at 2 p.m. He told me the firm wanted to promote me directly into the Senior Analytics Director position, a 2-level jump from junior analyst, with a salary increase that would have nearly doubled my pay. I declined. I did not decline because I didn't want the work. I declined because I had learned something about myself in the previous 2 weeks that I needed to honor. The version of my career I wanted was not the version that involved stepping into the chair of the man who had tried to destroy me. That chair carried its own weight, and I did not want to inherit it. I asked instead for a lateral promotion to a different team, the Advanced Modeling Group, which handled Meridian's most technically demanding projects and reported to a different senior director, a woman named Raina Halloran, whom I had worked with twice before and respected. The role came with a significant raise but kept me in an analyst position rather than a management one. Linwood agreed without hesitation. I also asked for one other thing. I asked that Priya Vance be formally recognized for her work on the audit logging system, both for the original build 3 years earlier and for her role in surfacing the truth in the Marlowe case. Linwood looked at me for a moment, nodded, and said, "Done. I will make it happen this week." Priya was promoted to Director of Information Integrity 10 days later. The promotion came with a raise, a new office on the 8th floor, and a formal commendation from the CEO. She emailed me the day the promotion was announced. The subject line was, "The system worked." The body of the email was 3 sentences. "Thank you for walking into my office on Tuesday. I have been waiting 3 years to be useful. I owe you a coffee, but I think I owe you several." We have had coffee about once a month since then, sometimes more. She has become one of the closest friends I have made in Hartford. I called my grandmother on Friday evening, the day after the boardroom meeting. I told her everything. The Marlowe project, the 6:02 p.m. submission, Russell's late-night sabotage, the Tuesday morning humiliation, the audit log, the Thursday boardroom, the termination. I told her in chronological order, slowly, the way she had taught me to tell important things. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The turtle was on your desk the whole time?" "It was in my pocket on Thursday. I brought it home Tuesday night and carried it to the meeting." "Good. That's how it's supposed to work, Sloan. The slow ones get where they're going. The fast ones make the loudest noise, but the slow ones survive. I am proud of you, baby. I am so proud of you." I cried a little on the phone. She did not rush me. She let me cry the way she had let me cry every time something hard had happened in my life since I was 7 years old. Then she told me she was making pot roast for Sunday dinner and asked if I was coming, and I said yes, and we hung up. I drove to West Hartford that Sunday. We ate pot roast at her small kitchen table. We did not talk about Meridian or Russell or the audit log. We talked about a book she was reading and a neighbor who had adopted a rescue dog and a recipe she wanted to try. The ordinary things that make a life worth winning back from the people who try to take it from you. I have been in my new role at Meridian for 3 months now. The Advanced Modeling Group is busier than my old team, and the work is harder, and I am happier than I have been in either of my 2 years at the firm. Raina Halloran is the kind of supervisor who actually reads my work, asks technical questions, gives credit publicly, and shields her team from corporate politics rather than weaponizing them. She is what a manager is supposed to be. I had forgotten, in 2 years under Russell Vance, that managers were supposed to be like this. Katarina Hellquist invited me to a follow-up meeting at Marlowe Industries headquarters 2 weeks after the Thursday boardroom. I drove to Bristol. I sat at a conference table across from her and presented the corrected Q1 forecast, the same $44.4 million projection I had submitted on the original Monday evening, with full documentation of the methodology. She approved it without questions. Then she asked me about my career plans, and we talked for an hour about what I wanted to build at Meridian over the next 5 years. At the end of the meeting, she shook my hand and said, "Ms. Pemberton, I will be requesting that you be the lead analyst on every Marlowe project from this point forward. Please tell Linwood I said so." I told Linwood. He smiled, the first real smile I had seen from him since the boardroom, and said, "Already done. She told me herself last week." I keep the green turtle on my new desk in the advanced modeling area. It sits in the same position it sat on my old desk, front right corner, where I can see it whenever I look up from my screen. Sometimes Priya stops by my desk on her way to lunch and taps the turtle's shell with her finger and says, "Slow and steady." It has become a small ritual between us. I started a new file on my personal laptop a few weeks ago. Not reference notes, something different. I called it Things I Learned. The first entry was dated the Thursday of the boardroom meeting. It said, "The truth has to be recorded somewhere. If you don't record it yourself, find a system that records it for you. Audit logs, timestamps, email receipts, witness statements, whatever the medium, the truth has to live somewhere outside the memory of the person trying to lie about it. The people who hurt you will count on the hierarchy and on your silence. Don't give them either." I have added entries since. Most of them are technical lessons about modeling and forecasting. Some of them are about people. All of them are written in the same calm, factual voice my grandmother taught me to use when something matters. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, if you've ever sat in a room watching someone you trusted destroy your reputation with a story they made up on the spot, I want you to know 2 things. The first is that the truth, almost always, is recorded somewhere. Find where it is. Find the person who knows where it is. Bring it into the light. The hierarchy that protects the liar is also the hierarchy that, when faced with undeniable evidence, will turn on the liar to protect itself. Use that. The second thing is that your name is yours. Russell Vance said my name twice in a boardroom on a Tuesday morning to use it as a shield. He thought my name was a small thing, a junior analyst's name, easy to discard. He was wrong. My name was attached to 2 years of careful work that lived in a database he had forgotten existed. My name survived him. My name is Sloan Pemberton. I am a senior analyst at Meridian Financial Consulting. I keep a green ceramic turtle on my desk because my grandmother told me the night before I started this job that slow and steady is its own kind of armor. She was right. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe if you haven't. And if you've ever been thrown under the bus at work and clawed your way back, tell me about it in the comments. I want to know how you proved them wrong. I want to know what your turtle was.